or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026. Your readers today are
Larry Beenan
and Linda Ranella. Starting with the weather report. Some sun today, a high 62, partly cloudy tonight, a low 42. Partly sunny and nice tomorrow, a high of 64, a low 45. For Friday, mostly cloudy and cooler with a little rain, a high 56 and low 42. Saturday, rain and drizzle, high 53, low 41. Sunday, times of clouds and sun, high of 58, low 45. For Monday, comfortable with some sun, a high of 65, low 48. And for Tuesday, cooler with rain, a high of 58, low 48. Sunrise was at 6:23 a.m. and sunset tonight is at 8:06 p.m. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Our opening story, Sloppy Second. Plenty to ponder as this show heads over to Boston. The proceedings are heading to Boston, which is what all the Bruins wanted along when they got to Buffalo on Saturday. To be frank, the Sabres should probably be thankful they're not heading to TD Garden in a serious 2-0 series hole. We're shipping up to Beantown for games in the Hub on Thursday and Sunday, with lots of food for thought from KeyBank Center in the wake of the Sabres' 4-2 loss on Tuesday night in Game 2 of their first-round Stanley Cup playoff series. As we ponder clam chowder versus lobster rolls versus Fenway Franks versus Pizzeria Regina of the North End, here are some of the subplots that seem to be developing. Your best players have to be your best players. The Bruins' David Pastrnak has a goal and 4 assists in the first 2 games. Morgan Geekie has 2 goals and 2 assists. Obviously, that can't continue if the Sabres want to win this game. Tage Thompson had his 2 goals and 3 points in Game 1, but was blanked Tuesday. No points in either game from Rasmus Dahlin, Josh Doan, Zach Benson, Jason Zucker, or Ryan McLeod. In the nets, it was one of the more interesting mano-a-mano matchups in the playoffs, even if ESPN somehow hasn't bothered to make sure its studio crew can pronounce the name of a Buffalo goalie who enters this series with 93 wins in 190 NHL games. In the wake of his terrific season, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen doesn't deserve to enter franchise infamy. But he's there now. Dominik Hasek once gave up a center ice goal to Joe Juneau during the 1998 Eastern Conference Finals in Washington, but that was a shot he got beat on. Luukkonen flubbed Geekie's backhand flip from just before the center red line, unable to play the bounce as it took a right turn and burned him with 3 minutes and 31 seconds left in the second period. It was a killer. It was 2-0 Boston. Game over. Luukkonen said he was trying to attack the puck but didn't get close enough to it. It allowed the bounce to essentially play him, and he said he didn't lose the puck in the background of the fans on the high flip either. Of course it's my fault. There's no way around it, Luukkonen said. You've just got to do better with those. What now? Jeremy Swayman is obviously a rock in the Boston net, and only an injury would take him out of the cage. The Sabres went back and forth with Luukkonen and Alex Lyon most of the season. It would seem to be a good bet they might switch to Lyon for Game 3 to stem the Bruins' tide. Ruff admitted it's a thought, and they wanted to get Lyon a period in the series with the score a little out of hand at 4-0. The power play. The Sabres' top players are on it, and they haven't won enough puck battles with the man advantage. They went 0 for 5 in Game 2. They're 0 for 9 in the series and 0 for April. 0 for 31 counting the regular season and playoffs. Right now, it's mental. The Sabres have to make changes in schematics and perhaps personnel. Let's see what Ruff does Thursday. Weird offense. The Sabres don't have a goal in the first 52 minutes of either game. They have 6 in the remaining time. They're specializing in fire drills, and the Bruins seemed brittle at end of games. Now, do you generate that kind of offense through the normal course of events in the first 40 minutes? We're playing good in the third period. We're making pushes, Zach Benson said. Well, we've got to be better at the start, and we know that. It's been 2 games. It's nothing to freak out about. The temperature is up. It took 2 games, but now we see the requisite animosity for a playoff series. The Sabres and Bruins had 47 penalty minutes apiece in this one, with much of it coming at the 6:14 mark of the third period after Nikita Zadorov body slammed Benson in front. They both needed misconducts, and so did Tage Thompson, as officials did a poor job separating combatants and multiple jab sessions took place. Logan Stanley did heavy work earlier in the third period after a bad hit to the knee by Boston's Charlie McAvoy on Beck Malenstein, who emerged unscathed. I think every game you play, you hate each other more, Benson said. It's just guys battling. I'm trying to get to the blue paint, and Zadorov is trying to keep me out. We've got each other's back. A good response from our group. Deadpan Lindy. Ruff tweets Bruins coach Marco Strom again on the scrums when he said, "You heard that he already said they're bigger and more physical. So yeah, I'm sure I'm going to worry." For the record, the Bruins lead the hits in the game 32-30. Familiar spot. This is 3 straight playoff series for the Sabres that have been tied at 1-1 through 2 games. The last 2, 2010 versus Boston and 2011 versus Philadelphia, have followed the same script, with Buffalo also winning the opener and dropping Game 2. The Sabres dropped both of those series in 6 and 7 games respectively, said Ruff. I don't want to see one person doubting that we're not going to Boston to win a hockey game.
Thank you, Larry. High-speed broadband could be up by this fall. Poloncarz says final mile lines are being hung now. Some openly wondered if it would really happen, but ErieNet, the county-sponsored broadband network meant to expand low-cost, high-speed fiber optic cable to all corners of the county, has finally signed its first agreements with private internet service providers, and some county residents may be able to access the county's high-speed network as soon as this fall. As part of County Executive Mark Poloncarz's State of the County address on Thursday, he plans to announce new ErieNet contracts with GoNetspeed, an independent service provider with networks through most states in the Northeast, and Cogent, a network service provider for commercial businesses in countries around the world. GoNetspeed is a final mile provider, and they're going to be delivering final mile lines in various communities across Erie County, Poloncarz said in a meeting with the Buffalo News editorial board this week. So what we thought would happen once we got ErieNet up is happening. Private entities are now participating in it, want to be part of it, and then deliver the final mile services to our community. Progress with ErieNet, a priority project in the Poloncarz administration, is part of a broader theme in the county executive's State of the County address, in which he touts the county's administration investment in county infrastructure and economic development efforts. The State of the County address will be held at 4:15 p.m. Thursday in Shays Performing Arts Center. Poloncarz acknowledged criticism the county has faced for the long delays in the program, which involved unexpected regulatory delays and coordination between electrical utility providers and ErieNet contractors, who were faced with improperly installed lines on existing poles from other providers that needed to be fixed before ErieNet could install its own fiber cables as part of the county network. ErieNet was first announced 7 years ago, but as of last summer, only 18 miles of the roughly 350-mile network had been successfully hung. I understand it, Poloncarz said of the criticism. We're basically required to clean up lines before we can string our own lines. He held up a photo of a Frankenstein's monster utility pole that was covered in wires hanging in every direction. While some of those messy situations still exist, he said, much progress has been made. ErieNet Executive Director Melissa Hartman said that 110 miles of fiber line have now been hung, with 66 more miles of line under construction, representing roughly half of the entire mapped network. She and Poloncarz confirmed that they expect all of ErieNet's cable network would be installed this year. GoNet Speed will focus its initial efforts on building last-mile connections in the town of Aurora and village of East Aurora, officials said. Some of those broadband lines could be up and running as early as late summer, Hartman said. Cogent will be focused on business and commercial connections. Both have signed long-term agreements with the county. The county-sponsored broadband network will be activated in phases and have the potential to represent a major cost savings for local governments and police services that currently rely on private providers for internet access, Hartman said. In addition, ErieNet is close to finalizing talks with several other private companies, including 2 other last-mile residential service providers, she said. A $5 million federal infrastructure grant will also offset some of the build-out costs. ErieNet has been promoted as a key multi-year effort to close the digital divide in rural and underserved urban communities and spur more economic and commercial development in overlooked and underpopulated areas. The county legislature approved the creation of the ErieNet Local Development Corporation in 2022, with the expectation that the county-controlled corporation would oversee the construction and operation of ErieNet and attract private companies to partner with the last-mile build-out of the network to homes and businesses. Because of the unusual nature of the county's public-funded undertaking, creating a middle-mile network of fiber lines that would serve as the backbone for private providers, additional processes, permitting requirements, and explanations were required to meet regulatory requirements, county officials said. In addition, fiber installation contractors in the city need special licensing. But the biggest problem by far has been accessing the thousands of utility poles owned by National Grid and New York State Electric and Gas, from which the majority of ErieNet lines are being hung. The county needs access to more than 11,600 utility poles throughout the county. The process for getting approval and pole access has improved considerably, county officials said, though there are still areas where poles remain a problem. As of right now, we feel very confident that we will have the whole system up and running by year end, Hartman said. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Sabres social media team going viral after years in the doldrums. Maybe the only people having more fun these days than Buffalo Sabres fans are the employees who run the team's social media accounts. Keeping fans engaged on X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and other sites wasn't easy when the team piled up losses and rarely came within shouting distance of the playoffs. Fewer people paid attention to the Sabres as the drought dragged on. Those who did were usually venting their frustration. But when the team's on-ice play turned around in December, the vibes changed online too. The Sabres social media group has spent the last 4 months sharing game highlights, celebrations of wins and player milestones, behind-the-scenes videos and memes. So many memes. The winning, it energizes us in a way that is fun and new to us, so we're able to even be more creative, Alexei Spector, the team's director of social media, said in an interview. These new flourishes include a receipts day devoted to cheekily calling out fans and commentators for their past negative comments and failed predictions. The team said it's all paying off with higher engagement levels this season, and they've just started getting the Sabres kicked off the Stanley Cup playoffs with a wild comeback win on Sunday. I'm pumped for it. It's going to be nutty, but it's not going to feel out of control because we're built to have a moment like this. Anna Stolzenberg, the Sabres Vice President of Content and Production, told the Buffalo News on Friday, "We're ready." Spector added, "Drought years were tough. The Sabres social media team is made up of Spector, social media coordinator Kurt Homisser, and a seasonal intern. They work closely with the organization's content team, including photographers, video editors, graphic designers, writers, and web producers. They all work out of the team's offices at 79 Perry Street under the direction of Stolzenberg, who was hired out of college in 2012 to launch the Bills' social media efforts. The Sabres standalone social media team has existed for about 3 years. By that point, of course, the Bills had established themselves as a perennial Super Bowl contender. The Sabres, meanwhile, were well into what became the longest playoff drought in NHL history. Fan-produced content from this time notably featured fake banners sarcastically celebrating middling moments. Ready to react. On game days, the social media team coordinates to make sure it has content available to post before, during, and after the games, such as streaming head coach Lindy Ruff's news conferences or sharing footage of the awarding of the victory belt from inside the locker room. Different social media sites appeal to different audiences. YouTube is a home for younger videos, but the site recently added YouTube Shorts to compete with Instagram Reels and especially TikTok, where the Sabres have seen considerable growth this season, according to Spectre. X, formerly Twitter, is the best site for the in-moment content, Spectre and Bolensberg said. One X user at Bensky1 pointed out a fan behind the Sabres bench wearing a sweatshirt with the misspelling Sarbies on his chest. The Sabres team's social media crew took notice. Within an hour, the Sabres had posted a photo of the fan holding a new "We're Back" Sabres hooded sweatshirt with the caption, "Couldn't let our guys go into the playoffs with a Sarbies hoodie." You had it coming. On April 14th, one day after the Sabres clinched the Atlantic Division title, the team revealed its Receipts Day plans on X. "Hey, Saberhood," Sabres admin here. "You've been through a lot together. We've been through a lot together. But specifically, I've been through a lot," the account wrote in a post that has viewed 3.4 million times. A Sabres admin burn book was decorated with inside joke references to drought-era lowlights, including a palm tree, lottery balls, Sabres gravy boat, and a scene from the Heated Rivalry TV show. The employees knew they wanted to focus on Ryan Whitney, a former NHL defenseman who co-hosts the Barstool Sports podcast Spittin' Chicklets, who had predicted the Sabres had a 0.000% chance to make the playoffs this season. Whitney, seeing the first Receipts Day post, replied, "Oh my God." Overall, Sabres social media accounts saw impressions grow by 102% and engagements by 75% this season over the 2024 season. Those numbers don't count the playoffs, which began with a bang on Saturday night. The social media team said they're thrilled to be along for the wagon ride.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 9:18. Today in history. On this date, in 1889, the Oklahoma land rush began at noon as thousands of homesteaders staked claims to the nearly 1.9 million acres of land that was formerly part of Indian Territory. By the end of the day, the cities of Oklahoma City and Guthrie were established with as many as 10,000 settlers each. In 1954, the publicly televised sessions of the Senate Army McCarthy hearings began, probing Wisconsin U.S. Senator Joseph McCarthy's allegations of communist influence within the federal government, the U.S. Army, and other spheres of American life. In 1994, Richard M. Nixon, the 37th President of the United States and the first to resign from office after the Watergate scandal, died in a New York hospital 4 days after suffering a stroke. He was 81. In 2000, in a dramatic pre-dawn raid, heavily armed immigration agents seized 6-year-old Elian Gonzalez, the Cuban boy at the center of an intense international custody dispute, from his relative's home in Miami. Elian was reunited with his father at Andrews Air Force Base near Washington and returned to Cuba in June. In 2005, Zacharias Musalai pleaded guilty in federal courtroom outside Washington, D.C. to conspiring with the September 11th hijackers to kill Americans. He was sentenced to life in prison in May 2006. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. The local Buffalo News editorial. Trash talk. Earth Day raises awareness of Buffalo's litter problem and how to address it. Litter. It's a bad look for any city, and Buffalo suffers from too much of it. Across the city, many streets in residential and commercial neighborhoods alike seem to be inhabited by people who have long forgotten how to use a trash can. At least there's Earth Day. This annual recognition of our endangered natural environment is a signal for big cleanups throughout the region. Litter is a big part of that endangerment. In addition to its unsightly presence lowering the quality of life for residents, trash has a way of disintegrating into our waterways, causing bigger ecological problems that can endanger the health of all living species, including humans. This Earth Day, organizations throughout the region are once again engaged in big community-wide calls to action that help carry their message throughout the year. On Saturday, Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper will have more than 1,000 volunteers removing thousands of pounds of trash from area shorelines and other public areas during its annual spring sweep. The Buffalo Olmsted Parks Conservancy kicks off Olmsted Month today, launching a month-long series of spring cleanup events across 850 acres of parkland that runs through May 22nd. Citywide, nonprofit Community Canvas and its spin-off, WNY Trash Mob, are teaming up for an Earth Day Cleanup Challenge, which invites all residents, groups, and individuals to register cleanups that take place between now and April 26 and submit photos of their activities. The photos are eligible for prizes, but as most who have done this kind of community work can attest, the sense of accomplishment is reward enough. And yet, despite a truly impressive level of volunteer activity, the mess persists year-round. Buffalo Mayor Sean Ryan, speaking recently to the editorial board, discussed the approach his administration is taking with the problem. "We all have to play an effort in keeping the city clean," Ryan said. "It starts with not littering. It starts with securing your garbage cans outside when it's a windy day and participating in the activities that we have around community cleanups." He noted that a public education campaign would make a difference. But Ryan also pointed out to an underfunded Department of Public Works with fewer people doing pickups and an inability to complete garbage routes in time, so that bins sit for extra days, increasing the likelihood of spills. Street sweeping drivers are also in short supply. Ryan rightly insists that Buffalo has been neglecting the basics that make for a well-run city. His plans to invest in the DPW are an important part of correcting that imbalance. Illegal dumping is the third issue after everyday littering and inefficient Department of Sanitation operations. This, Ryan states, is a public safety matter that requires reporting and actively pursuing contractors and others who illegally dump large amounts of debris so that they can be arrested and prosecuted. It would require better enforcement devoted to something that too often is treated as a mere nuisance. Ultimately, an all-hands-on-deck approach must be applied. Community pride is a big part of it. Ryan described a Grant Street effort that took place when his legislative offices were located there. It involved signage, meetings, and involvement of the council member, and every business owner being outfitted with a broom and dustpan. There was even a billboard, "Don't litter Grant Street." According to Ryan, it all worked, but such efforts easily lose momentum, and that's what Buffalo residents have to keep in mind. In the meantime, it's time to pick up the trash. Join the Waterkeeper effort at bnwaterkeeper.org/springsweep. Visit buffaloparks.org/series/Olmsted. Well, there's a big, we'll give you this if you call the station at 821-5555. The best citywide opportunity can be accessed at Community Canvas, blah, blah, blah. Call the station, 821-5555, if you need those addresses. And help keep Buffalo clean.
Thank you, Larry. The editorial cartoons, the first one's by Adam Zeigler of the Buffalo News. And it shows Pope Leo on one side and President Trump on the other side. And President Trump is dressed like Jesus. You've seen that picture, yes. And he is holding a map of the Strait of Hormuz. And he is shouting all these things out. He says, "Open a blankety blank strait. The Pope is weak. I'm dressed as a doctor. Whole civilization will die tonight. Anti-American fake news media." And like I say, there's Pope Leo off to the side, and there's a man talking to Pope Leo, and he's looking at President Trump, and he says he turns water into wine, WHINE. And the second cartoon is by Tom Stieglitz of Creator Syndicate, and it shows an ashtray, and the ashtray is labeled Cuba. And there's a bunch of ashes in there, and there's a Cuban cigar labeled with a band around the one end there, communism, with the sickle and hammer symbol on it, and it's being pushed out, or as you would tamp out a cigar to stop it burning. That's it. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Everybody's column. Healthcare promises unfulfilled. Does anyone else find it more than a little ironic that our president has proposed massive cuts to both Medicare and Medicaid, threatening health care to millions to fund his war of choice in Iran? He then posts a picture of himself as Jesus Christ laying hands on the healing of the sick. Perhaps this is finally the Trump version of really, really, really good health care that we have been promised since 2016. This from Lauren Eastmer of Canada.
Thank you, Larry. Suspension disparities must be addressed. I am writing about school discipline reform in the Buffalo Public School District. Research shows that the majority of students suspended are identified as Black, Latino, and students with learning disabilities. The core philosophy of BPS is putting children and families first to ensure high academic achievement for all. So putting this issue in the light can prove how determined the district is to make the learning environment safe for all students. BPS has the most suspensions of New York State large school districts. For the students who are suspended, it proves a decline in education performance since they are not in the classroom environment and not gaining the information they need to succeed. In February's board meeting, the attendees from the public included former teachers, current social workers, guidance counselors, and other people in the district who have shared concerns for the safety of their students and fair treatment. Statistics show that students who are most likely to be suspended in the district are students with learning disabilities, with Black students closely following behind. Investigations have started looking into the issues. Ensuring safety and fairness for students can help the development of a safe and fair learning environment. And this is written by Margaret Schwagler of Northtown, Owanda. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Egg washing uses too many resources. So CRARE apparently plans to build a $32 million egg cleaning facility to separate from its egg production facility. Seems to make sense given increasingly intense avian flu outbreaks from the 21 to 26. However, did you ever wonder why eggs need to be cleaned in the first place? In Europe, eggs are able to be stored at room temperature primarily because they are not washed, thus preserving their natural protective coating, the cuticle, that keeps bacteria out. Strict regulations in Europe require hens to be vaccinated against salmonella, whereas the U.S. does not mandate this vaccination by federal law. The U.S. oddly, however, has significantly higher rates of foodborne illnesses such as salmonella. Yet the U.S. requires eggs to be cleaned by FDA regulation. Make this make sense. Also, the amount of potable water used to clean 700 million eggs per year is over 18 million gallons, or about 27 Olympic-sized swimming pools. And then there is the wastewater management of chlorinated water to be stored in wastewater septic fields for the next 50 or so years. Leaching could, of course, occur back into the water table. Many countries already vaccinate against bird flu, yet the U.S. has historically resisted this and focuses more on culling and concerns about clean eggs. Wouldn't it help all of us to simply leave the cuticle intact on the egg itself, thus saving large amounts of drinking water and eliminating the need for large wastewater septic fields? After all, we're here in WNY will live next to 20% of the world's fresh water. Why waste it?
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 9:29. Some opinion columns. This one is Another Voice, and it's about education, and it's written by Tamira Barlow, who is Executive Director of King Center Charter School. King Charter School is in the process of change. Rumors spread quickly. Truth requires leadership. So let's be clear. King Center Charter School is not closing, and it is not in jeopardy of closure. What is happening is something far more important and far more challenging. We are doing the hard work of change. Every day, more than 400 students walk through our doors expecting what every child deserves: a safe environment, strong instruction, and real opportunity. That is our responsibility. That is our focus. And that is why change was necessary. After more than a decade of unacceptable academic outcomes, our Board of Trustees made the difficult but necessary decision to reset expectations and move the school forward with urgency and purpose. This was not about dismissing the past. It was about acknowledging that our students deserve better results in the present. Understandably, not everyone agrees with how change happens. However, disagreement should never come at the expense of children. There is a difference between raising concerns and actively working against progress. Efforts to undermine the school during a critical period of improvement only create confusion, erode trust, and distract from the work that matters most: serving students. At King Center, we are choosing to stay focused. We are strengthening instruction, building systems that support consistency and accountability, and setting higher expectations for what teaching and learning should look like every day. This work is not quick and it is not easy, but it is necessary and it is already underway. To our families and community members, we need your partnership. Ask questions, stay engaged, hold us accountable, but do so in a way that supports progress, not disruption. Our children, and learning what it means to face challenges, navigate disagreement, and move forward with purpose. King Center has a long-standing legacy in this community. We honor that legacy, but honoring the past also means making the necessary changes to ensure a stronger future. That is the work before us now. We are committed to doing it with focus and transparency. The question is not whether change is happening, it is. The question is whether we as a community will come together to support it. Our students deserve nothing less. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. The following is from Froma Harrop. Politicians from both sides show a serious lack of judgment. Democrat Eric Swalwell and Republican Tony Gonzalez were both accused of sexual misconduct involving staffers. Swalwell of California said he'd resigned from his House seat after giving up on his run for governor. Gonzalez of Texas said he was withdrawing from the 2026 re-election race. Back in the day, male politicians cavorted with their female staffers and got away with it. But that was way back and many days ago. An official cheating on his wife with a woman picked up at a rally doesn't seem to bother voters the way it once did. Donald Trump has numbed the electorate to that level of moral outrage. Many men regarded as great national leaders had sexual relationships outside their marriages. Some were founding fathers. An affair with a staffer who may fear losing a job or a chance at promotion if they refuse is another matter. Although I've generally referred to the offenders as men, women can engage in similar misconduct, and some have. They famously include former California Rep. Katie Hill. She was involved in at least one improper relationship with a congressional staffer. Hill resigned in 2019 under considerable pressure. The undeniable shift in the rules of conduct makes it incomprehensible that an ambitious congressman would ignore them. That goes doubly for Swalwell, a Democratic star who briefly ran for president in 2019. Until recently a serious contender to become governor of California, he's now out of the race. He's been charged with grave offenses, which include drugging and raping a woman in a hotel in 2018. I'm reluctant to accept as fact any accusation thrown at a powerful male figure. The hashtag #MeToo business may have emerged out of reasonable outrage, but it has often spiraled into a racket-peddling half-truths pushed by women with other agendas or a few screws loose. Swalwell says the stories about him are false. He denies the rape charge and insists that the allegations were politically motivated. He might have a point or two. Given the heated gubernatorial race in California, the timing may be questioned. Swalwell's lawyer has publicly threatened legal action against at least one accuser, but his admission of having made mistakes alongside the copy and paste announcement my focus in the coming days is to be with my wife and children, leads one to believe he was sexually involved with an underling. That alone is serious. Power radiating over good looks and smart TV appearances made Swalwell a glamorous figure. He had fans in Hollywood. One can easily believe an unnamed accuser's description of his aura. When he talked to you, it was like the sun was shining on you, she said. You felt like the coolest person in the room. As for Gonzalez, the staffer with whom he admitted having an affair later took her life. The congressman insists that the suicide was not tied to their relationship. Gonzalez strayed from his marriage vows while representing a culturally conservative district along the South Texas border. Swalwell's constituents in the East Bay, right across the water from San Francisco, are affluent and socially liberal. The two couldn't be culturally more different, but both seemed to think they were entitled to disregard the mores of the day. Being sexually involved with an employee is barred by house rules, and for good reasons. Again, if they were caught having a fling with a woman outside their professional orbit, they might be criticized but could wrangle their way out of it. Their fatal flaw was treating their female workforce as a harem. What could they have been possibly thinking?
Thank you, Larry. Some business and financial news. Region's jobless rate tops 5% as seasonal jobs end. The Buffalo-Niagara region's unemployment rate jumped to 5.1% in February, its highest level in 4.5 years, as seasonal jobs tied to the holidays came to an end. But a February spike in jobless levels is typical, and this year's jump left jobless levels only slightly higher than the 5% rate from February 2025. Employment levels usually peak in February and decline steadily into the summer as hiring ramps up for warmer weather positions. The February unemployment report released Tuesday by the State Labor Department indicates that the local job market is softening a bit and is not nearly as tight as it was in the years immediately following the pandemic. But the jobless levels are not high enough to indicate that the region's job market is in a significant decline. The region's unemployment rate has ranged around 5% or less for most of the past 8 years, excluding the pandemic-related spike. The rising unemployment rate comes after a separate report from the Labor Department last week showed that the region had lost jobs for 2 straight months and now has fewer jobs than it had in any month since September 2025. Economists said the slowdown in hiring stems from the no-hire, no-fire job economy that has settled in across the nation as uncertainty has increased, first over tariffs and now the war in Iran, that has caused energy prices to skyrocket and unleashed a new wave of uncertainty over businesses and consumers. With hiring slumping, workers are finding it harder to land a job. The number of unemployed people increased by 7% from January to February and is up by 27% between December and February. That increase added 6,000 more people to the ranks of the unemployed, which is roughly in line with the jump during the same 2 months a year ago. The number of unemployed people, along with the unemployment rate, is at its highest level since August 2021, the Labor Department reported. At the same time, the number of people holding jobs dropped by about 3,500 people from January to February and by roughly 5,700 people between December and February, although about 1% more people are employed currently than in February 2025, the report said. The region's labor force, which has been steadily growing since the pandemic, shrunk slightly from January to February, but remains close to its post-pandemic high, a sign that workers still feel they can find a job if they start looking for one. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. New Apple chief focuses on products over AI tech. To understand how Apple's new CEO, John Ternus, will run the company, pay attention to what he refuses to sell. While software rivals at Microsoft and Google are spending hundreds of billions to push artificial intelligence into every corner of their businesses, the man set to lead one of the world's most iconic companies appears to treat AI with a deliberate, almost stubborn pragmatism. We never think about shipping a technology, Tarnas 50 said in a recent interview about AI with tech review site Tom's Guide. We always think about how we can leverage technology to ship amazing products. When he succeeded Tim Cook on when he succeeds Tim Cook on September 1st, that distinction will matter enormously. Turnus' focus on the product makes him a steward of Apple tradition at a time when the Cupertino-based tech giant has lost its perch as the world's most valuable company to NVIDIA. Apple delayed rollout of its revamped Siri Assistant and its reliance on Google for the AI to power it have led some analysts to question its strategy for the new technology. That has yet to affect iPhone sales, but technology experts say advances in AI could usher in a once-in-a-generation change that threatens the smartphone's central role in people's lives. Rivals, including Samsung and OpenAI, are betting that Apple's stumble is an opening. Meta has also found early success with its Ray-Ban smart glasses that come with an AI feature. The question is whether he has the appetite for that kind of bold, occasionally uncomfortable decisions that defining a new platform requires, said Francisco Geronimo, Vice President of Client Services at research firm IDC. Building great hardware is a well-defined problem. Building an AI platform that developers and enterprises generally adopt is a different challenge entirely. Turnus, a 25-year Apple veteran who started out designing external displays, arrives in the top job with decades of experience as a hardware engineer who has spent his career building the case that the best defense is a better device. In a 2023 interview with Reuters about new Apple products made with recycled material, Turnus came across as thoughtful and measured, with a detailed grasp not only of how Apple's new products were built, but also of how its supply chains could be ramped up to include more recycled materials across Apple's lineup. Analysts say Turnus is widely respected at Apple and enjoys a strong backing across ranks. Everyone loves him at Apple. All the execs I know speak very highly of him, said Ben Bargeron, an analyst at Creative Strategies. By prioritizing devices over pure software, the new CEO has more in common with Apple co-founder Steve Jobs than with his immediate predecessor. Jobs was similarly uninterested in technology for its own sake, famously saying, "You've got to start with the customer experience and work back toward the technology, not the other way around." Turnus, who worked under Jobs early in his Apple career, promised on Monday to keep leading the values and vision that have come to define this special place for half a century. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Fed nominee vows to fight inflation. President Trump's nominee to lead the Federal Reserve pledged to fight inflation at a hearing Tuesday, even as the president renewed his demands for interest rate cuts that could worsen it. The comments underscore the challenges faced by Kevin Warsh, a former top Fed official whom Trump named in January to replace current Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Trump has repeatedly attacked Powell for not cutting rates. Investors will be watching the hearing closely to see how Warsh balances Trump's demands for lower interest rates as the war in Iran pushes up the price of gasoline, adding to inflationary pressures that already exist. Higher inflation typically leads the Fed to raise rates, or at least keep them unchanged rather than cut them. When the Fed changes its key rate, it can affect mortgages, auto loans, and business borrowing. Warsh told the Senate Banking Committee that one of his top goals would be to fight inflation, which remains elevated at 3.3% annually. Congress tasked the Fed with mission to ensure price stability without excuse or equivocation, argument, or anguish, Warsh said. Inflation is a choice, and the Fed must take that responsibility for it. Trump was asked Tuesday in an interview on CNBC if he would be disappointed if Warsh didn't cut rates right away, if confirmed. "I would," Trump said. Warsh would be in a tough spot if confirmed. Inflation is worsening as the Iran war has sent gas prices higher, making it much harder for the Fed to implement the interest rate cuts Trump so desperately seeks. The conflict could also slow the economy as well as hiring. And if Warsh ultimately becomes chair, he may very well find his predecessor, Powell, still sitting on the Fed's governing board, an uncomfortable arrangement that hasn't occurred since the late 1940s. Warsh, a former top official at the Fed and a wealthy investor, faced a range of tough questions at the hearing. Democrats have raised the issue of what they see as a lack of transparency regarding some of his vast financial holdings, which total more than $100 million, according to a recent disclosure. Warsh expressed support for the Federal Reserve's independence in his opening statement. He said such political independence is essential, but he also said it wasn't threatened when elected officials, presidents, senators, or members of the House state their views on interest rates. Trump has repeatedly urged Powell to cut the Fed's key rate from its current level of about 3.6%. Senator Elizabeth Warren, a Massachusetts Democrat, said that Trump has not just stated opinions on rates, but has sought to fire a Fed governor and is investigating Powell for recent testimony about the Fed. She also accused Warsh of flip-flopping on interest rates, supporting higher borrowing costs as a member of the Fed's Board of Governors, despite the weak recovery from the 2008 to 2009 Great Recession when the Democrats were in the White House. She said he switched positions after Trump was reelected. The Senate should not be aiding and abetting Donald Trump's illegal takeover of the Fed by installing his chosen sock puppet as chair, she said. While the long-delayed hearing is a necessary step for Warsh, it's not clear when the committee may even be able to vote on his nomination. The Justice Department is investigating Powell and the Fed over a building renovation, and Senator Thom Tillis, a North Carolina Republican, has said he would effectively block Warsh until the probe is dropped. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. From Business Briefly, Doyle Security Systems buys Complete Security. One of the nation's largest home and commercial security firms has acquired Buffalo-based Complete Security, adding to its already strong presence in the western New York market. Rochester-based Doyle Security Systems, the 20th largest security provider, did not say how much it paid to buy Complete Security, which has been owned by Mike Iannello since 1991 and has provided services to thousands of clients. Iannello will join Doyle as a sales consultant at its Buffalo branch. And technology. Meta is installing new tracking software on U.S.-based employees' computers to capture mouse movements, clicks, and keystrokes for use in training its artificial intelligence models, the company said. Staffers in internal memos were seen by Tuesday by Reuters. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Gress, James. Hughes, Kevin D. McDaniel, J. Pecoraro, Peter. Preschel, Jr., Lawrence, August. Rex, Sandra. Wojnar, Mary Ann Nekraus. Zielinski, William S. Sr., Bill. And former Hawaii Governor George R. Ariyoshi, the nation's first Asian American governor, has died at age 100. And Alan Osmond, the eldest member of the chart-topping family act The Osmonds, died Monday after decades with multiple sclerosis. He was 76. And Patrick Muldoon, known for his roles on Days of Our Lives, Melrose Place, and Starship Troopers, has died. He was 57. If you need further information on any of these names, give us a call at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Royal Stars, happy birthday for Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026. You're equipped to grasp a situation. You're also energetic, positive, and steadfast. This is the final year of a 9-year cycle, which means it's time to let go of people, places, and things from the past that held you back. Aries, 2 stars. You might have a stronger than usual focus on family or your private life today. If so, there will be challenges, especially talking to older family members or parents. Tonight, cocoon at home. Taurus, 3 stars. This is a tricky day. In one way, conversations with others will be stressed. perhaps even aggressive or angry. Tonight, warm conversations. Gemini, 3 stars. Financial discussions might disappoint today. You might not get your way. You might find yourself at odds with a friend or a member of a group. Tonight, check your belongings. Cancer, 2 stars. Today, discussions with parents, bosses, and VIPs, including the police, will be challenging. Don't ask for permission or approval. Tonight, you win. Leo, 3 stars. Steer clear of controversial subjects today, especially politics and religion, because that won't work. Tonight, enjoy solitude. Virgo, 3 stars. Discussions about publishing, medical matters, or the law might go well today. Certainly, you want to travel and get away from all this. Tonight, be friendly. Libra, 2 stars. Be aware that you are high vis today. People notice you. Therefore, think twice before getting into an argument with a spouse, partner, or a close friend, which might easily happen. Tonight, oh, you're admired. Scorpio, 3 stars. Steer clear of touchy subjects today. They will do you no good, and in fact, they might harm your relations with coworkers or people involved with your job. Tonight, explore and learn. Sagittarius, 3 stars. Despite challenges dealing with romantic partners as well as kids today, you feel warm and generous to others. Go figure. Tonight, check your finances. Capricorn, 2 stars. Today, you have to go more than halfway when dealing with others because the moon is opposite your sign. Tonight, cooperate. Aquarius, 3 stars. Even though daily discussions with others, especially with siblings, relatives, and neighbors, might be challenging and even confrontational, relations with coworkers are supportive. Tonight, get better organized. Pisces, 3 stars. This is a playful, fun-loving day that might be marred by tension about financial matters, possessions, or juggling the cost of things. You want to enjoy your daily surroundings. You want to get along with everyone. Tonight, socialize.
Thank you, Larry. Hints from Heloise. Tips for removing stuck-on decals. Dear Heloise, for years I tried to scrape off decals that my kids stuck on the bathtub or bathroom tile. It ended up being a mess and some decals just wouldn't come off. Finally, I tried my mother's suggestion and it worked with very little effort on my part. Fill a spray bottle with equal amounts of water and bleach. Spray this on the decals, making sure they are well covered with the mixture. Let it set for about 15 to 20 minutes. You can use an old credit card to scrape off the decals or a plastic scraper that is normally used to remove ice from a windshield. Repeat if needed or if a stain or decal is stubborn. And that's from Karina. Karina, this same formula is great for killing mold and mildew as well as decal removals. Readers, the next letter is from another reader who also has a recommendation for stubborn deal removals. From Heloise. Removing decals continued. Dear Heloise, I found that using hot vinegar on nasty-looking decals works wonders. I soak a sponge in hot vinegar and sponge the mixture all over the decal or gummy, sticky residue from stick-on hooks and tape. Slowly the glue that is behind the decal or hook starts to loosen and is easy to wash off with this mixture. That's from Jean. Hammered fingers. Dear Heloise, every time I wanted to hammer a nail, I always seemed to hammer my fingers while I was at it. Finally, I found a way to save my fingers from damage. I start hammering the nail with one tap, then I slide a fork. Then I take a fork, slide the nail between the prongs, and continue to hammer the nail. When I'm done, I just slide the fork away from the nail. No more blackened fingernails. From Chad. Plaster problem. Dear Heloise, we bought an old house that was built in 1889. The walls are made of plaster, and we've been busy patching up some of the holes and cracks. The only problem has been that the plaster dries out too quickly. My husband is frustrated by this problem, but I told him I'd write to you and ask what to do. You always seem to know what to do in these types of situations. So how do we keep the plaster from drying out so fast? From Kit and Dan. Kit and Dan, add about 2 tablespoons of vinegar to a quart of plaster. This should help slow down the drying time. And brief updates. Dear Heloise, I agree somewhat with Gloria W.'s letter about Pollyanna letters. in which they are often too long and detailed. However, I'm horribly disappointed to get a Christmas card from a distant friend with only a signature in the card, no news, no updates. We send 135 cards, and I can't possibly write a personal note on each one. I keep our letters short with just an update on our past year, both good and bad, and I'm happy to get them from friends. So please, folks, be brief and to the point, but do tell us about your year. And that's from Linda Beth. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Trump to participate in Bible reading event. President Trump and many of his leading Christian supporters and top Republicans are taking part this week in a marathon reading of the Bible in an America 250 themed event billed as encouraging a return to the spiritual foundation that has shaped our country. America Reads the Bible event, with each participant reading a passage aloud, is being live streamed this week from the Museum of the Bible in Washington and other locations. It is slated to feature a video of Trump on Tuesday evening reading a passage that called for national repentance in ancient Israel, words that have been used predominantly for decades by those promoting the belief that America has been and should be a Christian nation. The Bible is indelibly woven into our national identity and way of life, Trump said in a statement commemorating the event. Critics say the event has a highly partisan list of participants and is part of a larger project to connect America's upcoming 250th birthday with a Christian nationalist vision that portrays the nation's founding as essentially Christian, something many historians dispute. White Christians, particularly evangelicals, have been crucial to Trump's electoral base. The Bible event comes just a week after Trump drew rare criticism from his evangelical supporters for circulating a social media meme in which a white-robed Jesus appeared as a Jesus-like healer surrounded by patriotic symbols. Trump removed the image from his Truth Social site while insisting he was depicted as a doctor, not Jesus. It also comes shortly after Trump highly profile clash with the U.S.-born Pope Leo the 14th over the Iran war.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, April 22nd on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after the short break. Your readers today are
Larry Beanon
and Linda Ranella.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Linda Ranella.
and Larry Beenan.
On to some local and regional news. Police commissioner nominee may not win council approval. The woman who could be Buffalo's next police commissioner got a lesson in politics Tuesday, courtesy of the Common Council. Erica Shields, Mayor Sean Ryan's pick to run the police department, explained her philosophy on policing to council members and said she hoped to gain their support. But following over an hour of questions, it remained unclear whether she would have the votes to be confirmed. Council members Rashid Wyatt, Mitchell Nowakowski, and David Rivera all said they would vote to confirm her. Council President Pro Tempore Zenetta Everhart and North District Council member Joseph Gollenbeck both said they would vote no. Council President Joe Ferroletto, Lovejoy District Council member Brian Bowman, Council Majority Leader Leah Holton Pope, and South District Council member Christopher Scanlon are all undecided or did not respond to text asking where they stood. Shields will need 5 yes votes to be confirmed. Without giving specifics, Everhart said she was threatened with political retribution over her decision on the commissioner appointment. She said she received multiple phone calls urging her to vote yes from a person who told her she would need political support to accomplish her goals. In an interview with the Buffalo News, Everhart declined to name the person who called her, but described the person as adjacent to the Ryan administration. I will not be intimidated, nor will I ever be threatened to sway my vote for political favor in this city, Everhart said. Shields, in an interview following the committee meeting, said she was unaware of the phone calls before hearing about them in council chambers. She called them concerning. A Ryan spokesperson declined to comment on Everhart's claims. Shields resigned as commissioner of the Atlanta Police Department following the police killing of Rayshard Brooks amid an incident where Brooks had stolen an officer's taser and discharged it in the direction of the police as he was fleeing. The officers were later cleared of wrongdoing by a special prosecutor. But Shields had said she and then Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms had different ideas about how the department should be run, and she was already planning on resigning. Shields also resigned at the request of the new mayor in Louisville, a common practice when new administrations take over. Everhart stressed that her opposition to Shields' appointment had nothing to do with the phone call she received. Instead, Everhart, who counts gun violence prevention as her top issue, reached out to advocates in Louisville who had directly worked with Shields. Some of the people told Everhart they believe Shields did not follow through on promises she made in the wake of the police killing of Breonna Taylor, she said. For me, it really is about that on-the-ground communication, Everhart said. Gollenbeck, in a text message, said he would not vote for her confirmation because he disagreed with the Ryan administration's decision to raise the salary for commissioner from $175,000 to $250,000, a move Ryan says is necessary to attract talent from outside the region. Shields has stressed the importance of integrating the police into the community and gaining trust in interviews and press events. During the committee meeting, she pledged to work closely with community groups and advocates if she becomes the next commissioner. I think that Atlanta really provided me with a strong foundation on community engagement that was the backbone of our department, Shields said. It wasn't just terminology or just community outreach officers. It was part of the department's DNA. Holton Pope several times pressed Shields to describe her decision-making process in resigning in Atlanta and asked what she would have done differently. Shields returned to a more common theme for her, more and better training for officers to prevent situations like the Brook killing and improve departmental culture. Wyatt says he supports her confirmation after talking to family members who live in Georgia, reading through her credentials and talking with her about what she wants to do with the Buffalo department. At the end of the day, the core of the person, the integrity they bring to the table, the things that we're currently dealing with the police department, those are the things that you can help change, Wyatt said, and from my examination, I believe you can. A vote on Shields' confirmation could come as early as next week. Everhart said that while she does not support Shields' confirmation, she would work with her to build relationships in her Maston district if Shields gets the job. For her part, Shields said after the committee meeting she appreciated the tough questions from the council members and she was glad that they had a good dialogue. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Bills will not set timeline for hiring diverse vendors. Panel monitoring CBA says firms seeking jobs at stadium left in dark. The Buffalo Bills say their concessionaire in the new stadium is a preliminary conversations with regional vendors as part of an effort to meet hiring goals for disadvantaged businesses. They just won't specify when the hiring will happen. And that's got members of the committee overseeing the community benefits agreement tied to the building of over $2 billion stadium feeling uneasy as the team is a little over 3 months away from hosting the first event in the new building. The Bills and Legends Hospitality have non-disclosure agreements in place that cover business operations and do not allow them to share publicly the timeline for hiring those businesses or information about conversations between them, according to Penny Semia, Bills Vice President for New Stadium Relations. Panel members say that it has left businesses interested in concessions operations at the new stadium in the dark about when they will be able to bid on the work, as well as other operations or opportunities in stadium. The team confirmed at Monday evening's Community Benefits Oversight Committee meeting that the first large-scale event in the stadium will be the return of the blue and red practice on August 8th, shortly before preseason games get going. The Bills say they're still on track for construction manager Gilbane Turner to turn the building over to the team on June 1st. The team actually has until July 1st to reach substantial completion as part of its deal with the state, which will become the stadium leaseholder as Erie County transfers the land for the Bills campus this summer. From a business side, traditionally with any organizations, when they're dealing with negotiations, there's always a sense of confidentiality, said Semia, who meets with Legends regularly. Member Mo Samumbo, Director of Community Relations for Governor Kathy Hochul, said the committee is not asking for confidential or proprietary information and trying to define a hiring timeline. We're nearing a completion of this project, and the question we keep hearing from community members is about when MWBE vendors will hear about the possibility of applying for the concession opportunities, he said. We just want to start getting some answers on that. Legends also is required to purchase 30% of its food products used at the new stadium from MWBE certified food service companies, and preference should be given to food and beverage items for sale at the new stadium produced and manufactured in New York. Legends will also be required to administer food and beverage service mentorship programs for MWBE firms. Over the past 2 years, 80 small businesses have reached out to the team, workforce development consultant, Developments by GEM, to inquire about getting certified. Less than 20% of them have obtained a state or county certification as of February. Some are still trying to get certified. Legends has said since the last year that it wanted to have its major hires in place for running the food and beverage and retail programs at the new stadium before it brings aboard local and diverse vendors. But time is now running short to get that done. The company has contacted all known MWBE certified companies in the food products industry, and initial discussions have been had with 75% of them. More than 50 businesses have been contacted in all. Many of them are MWBE businesses but not certified. Semia said Legends knows the objectives of the CBA and the company's responsibility in hiring. Legends has also hired someone to specifically deal with CBA compliance matters at the new stadium, Semia said. Through our conversations, I think Legends is comfortable with where we are on the timeline. Semia said the Bills have made contact information for Legends readily available to any interested vendors and will continue to do so. But local businesses owner Connie Irvin, who spoke Monday during the public comment period, said she knows vendors who have reached out to Legends and never heard back. So there's an issue there, Evans said. People are just tired of this, and why go through it if we're not going to follow through with it?
Thank you, Larry. Another Bills article here. Bills choose local artists for new stadium collection. The Buffalo Bills have selected more than 45 artists and art teams, many of them influential local artists who live in or have ties to Western New York, to create a collection throughout the team's new stadium under construction. Pulitzer Prize-winning Buffalo News editorial cartoonist Adam Zeigler is among the artists who were chosen. Zeigler has incorporated sports cartoons into his work over the past 2 decades at the News, and his cartoons have appeared in magazines, books, and newspapers around the world. The artist will create ceiling artwork, wall-based art, and murals to create a permanent site-specific art collection in 40 locations around the building. The work is meant to reflect the city's diverse demographics, team and fan engagement, and also welcome travelers of all backgrounds. In all, 433 applications were received for the Buffalo Bills Public Art Program at Highmark Stadium, with more than 300 individuals signing up for the program's public art mailing list, according to the team. This program also anticipated to bring together thousands of community members to help in the effort, which aims to support Western New York's diverse communities through ongoing cultural investment, the bill said. Artists chosen range from sculpture makers, muralists, painters, graphic designers, illustrators, and photographers to art educators, cultural designers, and business owners. They work with influential companies and brands and have their work showcased and displayed in local and worldwide galleries, collections, and publications. The team announced the arts program in February 2025 and then began the process of soliciting applicants, reviewing portfolios, and selecting qualified artists or artist teams for work that fits within the context of the new stadium. There were 27 panelists from a wide range of well-known Western New York arts and cultural institutions like the Buffalo AKG Art Museum, who reviewed and selected the final works. The Bills went through a national search for signature Buffalo bison sculpture and held 3 separate open calls specifically for local artists, covering ceiling artwork, wall-based art, and murals. Other notable artists and organizations chosen include Carl Cordes, a Buffalo-themed sports pop artist who has taught in West Seneca schools, Leslie Zemsky, a partner in Larkin Development Group, who's a painter of whimsical artwork and custom wallpaper and fabric designs, and Stitch Buffalo, a textile arts hub on Buffalo's west side, known as a workshop for refugee women. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. DEC awards Urban Farms Clean Air Groups $1 million. Grants boost 5 local agencies fighting environmental injustice. 5 Western New York organizations were awarded a total of nearly $1 million from the state to bolster programs to help fight against environmental injustice, which is how officials and environmental advocates refer to situations where poor communities tend to bear the brunt of pollution, climate change, and policies that decrease easy access to healthy food. The Massachusetts Avenue Project, which runs a farm and agricultural programs on Buffalo's west side, received $184,500. Fillmore Forward, a nonprofit that describes itself as a community-based group interested in revitalizing local businesses, received $200,000. The funding supports critical work of the people on the ground and people who are committed to tirelessly lifting up their communities and providing a healthier, more sustainable future. New York State Department of Environmental Conservation Commissioner Amanda Lefton said Tuesday, "I'm just so proud to be part of this agency and supporting the amazing organizations that are here today. Just hearing a little bit about the work that you're doing, it's really exceptional. I know that it means so much to your communities, and we're so proud as an agency to support you and this awesome work." 3 other groups each received just under $200,000, the Clean Air Coalition of Western New York, the North Tonawanda Botanical Garden, and the Providence Farm Collective, Lefton said during a press conference Tuesday morning at MAP Buffalo. That's MAP Buffalo. The awards to Western New York groups are part of a $6 million total award to 32 community programs across New York through the Environmental Protection and Fund Administration that are administered by the DEC, Lefton said. Some of the local money will go directly toward fighting policies and other systemic problems, preventing people from getting access to good food, building community resilience in the face of climate change, and bolstering people's access to nature across Buffalo. We grow thousands of pounds of organic produce each year and help distribute even more through our mobile market, reaching over 6,000 low-income houses across Buffalo along the way, said Diane Picard, Executive Director of MAP, on Tuesday. We're not just growing food, we're building knowledge, confidence, and sense of purpose. Picard said the grant money from DEC will create 120 youth jobs in sustainable agriculture and expand healthy food access in Buffalo. We know that food security, diet-related diseases, and environmental hazards like lead contamination disproportionately impact low-income communities and communities of color. And with growing threats to essential supports like SNAP and Medicaid, these challenges are only becoming more urgent, she said. With the generous support of the DEC Environmental Justice Community Impact Grant, we will be able to continue to focus on practical, community-driven solutions, teaching residents how to grow safely in urban soils, making fresh, healthy, affordable, accessible produce available, and helping people understand the connections between our food system and climate change. With the funding, the Clean Air Coalition of WNY will be able to fund the creation of neighborhood hubs designed to provide mutual aid network and help residents prepare for and stay safe during extreme weather. In 2024, People United for Sustainable Housing, PUSH, Buffalo, and other local community and environmental organizations were awarded $20 million under the Biden administration's Inflation Reduction Act for creating the neighborhood hubs in the city of Buffalo. But under the Trump administration, those funds were frozen, community organizers said. Raha Gurmadetzian, who is spearheading the work, said about $250,000 was raised through foundations to start the program last July. The DEC's $200,000 grant will help the program continue to grow in Buffalo, she said. The Providence Farm Collective also said the DEC funds will help plug a hole created by federal cuts. The organization is in an ongoing lawsuit to restore $749,000 in funding it had received from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to support its work, which the Trump administration cut because the organization was told money couldn't be used for diversity, equity, and inclusion programming. The money from the DEC will help support Providence Farm Collective's 8 community farms and provide training resources to farmers, said Kristen Heltman-Weiss. The collective farm in Orchard Park produces more than 100,000 pounds of produce annually that goes to around 14,000 people across western New York, helping to bring healthy, fresh food to those who need it most, she added. The organization also provides farmers with the land, tools, and knowledge they need to start businesses and feed their communities. This is super exciting, Heltman-Weiss said. To receive a grant like this is incredibly powerful.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 10:17. On to sports. Of course, Sabres. Lack of focus put Sabres in a tough spot. One mistake by Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen did not decide Game 2. For much of Tuesday night in KeyBank Center, the Boston Bruins were better than the Buffalo Sabres. The visitors pressured the puck to take away time and space. They scored a power play goal. Their defensemen quickly exited the zone to help their forwards get back to playing offense. None of the puck battles or mistakes the Sabres committed during their disappointing 4-2 loss were as deflating as the uncharacteristic blunder that may haunt Luukkonen if his teammates are unable to win at least one game on the road in their best-of-7 first-round Stanley Cup playoff series, which is now tied at 1 game apiece. Bruins forward Morgan Geekie backhanded the puck from behind the center ice line, then skated toward his bench for a change. A routine snare of the glove became a nightmare for Luukkonen as the puck dribbled past him to give Boston a 2-0 lead with 3:31 left in the second period. The series is now far from over, and now the Bruins are home for games 3 and 4 with a vision for how they need to eliminate Buffalo. They are also aware of how quickly they can lose their way. A 5-game losing streak nearly caused Boston to tumble to 8th in the Eastern Conference. Twice this season, the Bruins lost 6 games in a row, but they are also one of the best teams in the league at home. Boston's 59 regular season points at home was the third best mark during the regular season. Its goal differential in those 41 games, plus-minus 44. The Bruins' focus Wednesday will be on the final minutes of regulation. They lost the shutout when the Sabres defenseman Bo Byron snapped a shot over Swayman's glove, and 76 seconds later, Peyton Krebs jammed the puck between Swayman's legs to cut Buffalo's deficit to 4-2. The Buffaloes regained their focus late. They need to keep it in Boston. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Arvidsson Bruins make most of chance to even series. Now the series moves to Boston. The Buffalo Sabres will head east after the Boston Bruins took Game 2 of their first-round Stanley Cup playoff series 4-2 Tuesday night at KeyBank Center. Jeremy Swayman made 32 saves in goal, while Victor Arvidsson scored 2 goals to help Boston force a split of the first 2 games of the best-of-7 series. Boston's win came 2 nights after the Sabres overcame a 2-goal deficit in the third period to win Game 1. This time, Boston held on, thanks in part because the Sabres didn't look as sharp for much of the game's first 50 minutes because of an off night for Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen and because their struggles on the power play continued. The Sabres went 0 for 5 on the man advantage. They are now 0 for 9 this series, and their power play drought stretches to the beginning of April. KeyBank Center, which was full of life on Sunday night and again early Tuesday, when Josh Allen banged the pregame drum, quieted down as the Bruins took a 3-0 second period lead. The crowd roared to life as Buffalo scored twice in the final 7 minutes, but it was too little, too late. How it happened. Sabres goalie Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen made a pair of one-on-one stops against Arvidsson and Mark Kaselik in the first 7 minutes, and the Sabres killed off 4 early minutes of power play time for the Bruins after Josh Doan was called for hooking at 8:43 of the first period, and Connor Timmins was cross-checking at 10:40. The Sabres began the second period with 90 seconds of power play time as David Pastrnak was called for tripping with 30.6 seconds left in the first, but the Bruins killed off the penalty. Victor Arvidsson gave the Bruins a 1-0 lead at 4:54 of the second period when he beat Matthias Samuelsson to a loose puck in the Sabres' defensive zone, held off the defenseman and beat Luukkonen on a backhand. The Bruins took a stunning 2-0 lead at 16:29 when Luukkonen misplayed a dump-in by Morgan Geekie from the neutral zone behind the red line. The puck bounced past Luukkonen, who attempted to catch the puck with his glove and gave Geekie his second goal in as many games. Then, with Tage Thompson in the penalty box for interference at 7:55, Pavel Zacha redirected Pasternak's pass from the top of the right circle past Luukkonen, 15 seconds into the power play, giving the Bruins a 3-0 lead. Arvidsson scored his second goal of the game 16 seconds into the third when he beat Luukkonen 15 saves and a shot from the left circle. The goal effectively ended Luukkonen's night with Alex Lyon coming in relief. Bowen Byron broke up a Swayman shutout bid on a shot from the top of the right circle to make it 4-1 with 6:06 left in the third period, and Peyton Krebs got a goal to cut the lead to 4-2 with 4:52 left, which forced the Bruins to call a timeout. What's next? The best of 7 series now moves to Boston, and the Bruins will host Game 3 at 7 p.m. Tuesday at TD Garden, and Game 4 is scheduled for 2 p.m. Sunday at TD Garden. Well, that's it, folks.
Thank you, Larry. Some shorts. This one, the U.S. women's basketball team will face China, Italy, and the Czech Republic in the Women's FIBA World Cup in September, looking to win its 5th consecutive title. The World Cup will be held September 4th to 13th in Berlin, with the WNBA taking a nearly 3-week break in its season to accommodate the event. The Americans have won the last 4 World Cups after taking bronze in 2006. And Super Bowl to Tennessee? ? Nashville, Tennessee will be named as host of the 2030 Super Bowl, Dan Patrick reported on his syndicated radio show on Monday. Patrick said he was informed over the weekend that the decision for the 2030 game was signed and ready to go. Later Monday, it was reported by 440 Sports, an independent sports audio network in Nashville, that the mayor's office had no indication from the NFL that the championship game following the 2029 regular season was set to be held in the city. A new Titans stadium is under construction along the Cumberland River, adjacent to the team's current venue. If construction remains on schedule, the new stadium could begin hosting events as early as February 2027. Inglewood, California is scheduled to host the next Super Bowl on February 14th, followed by Atlanta and Las Vegas. So we shall see, folks. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Well, hockey is the focus, but don't forget the football draft is coming up tomorrow. And so a little bit of speculation, of course, is appropriate from the Bills staff, or from the news staff. Wheel and deal again? GM Bean could look to get back into second round. Who knows? When the second round of the NFL draft starts up on Friday, Brandon Bean may just sit back and look at pictures of DJ Moore. Maybe it'll be the wide receiver hauling in a big catch or even scoring a touchdown. Moore won't be in a Bills uniform yet unless Bean has someone AI or Photoshop him in. But visualization will still help Bean pass the time. It's a little trick the Bills' general manager has done before. I'll probably do what we did was with Stefan Diggs when I was drafting from my basement, Bean said, reflecting the 2020 COVID draft. I'll just put some images of Diggs. We'll probably do the same with DJ, just to remind ourselves, all right, this was an asset that we used for this known commodity in the NFL. As things currently stand, Bean does not have a second-round pick in this week's draft. He made use of that capital and more, but the Bills still have work to do on the roster. Bringing a receiver like Moore to Buffalo helps the Bills in other ways. But Bean knows any trade means giving up something. Listen, you want all your picks, Bean said Tuesday. You want to be selective when you do it. But we just felt in most drafts, and especially in this draft, we just didn't feel like there's going to be a player of DJ's caliber to trade that to. So we're excited how we already spent a little bit of our draft capital, and now we just have to hopefully hit someone, hit some needs, get some good players, whether they're starters, key backups, whatever it is. There are still spots that we can add, again, whether it's a starter or a depth player on either sides of the ball. The Bills pick in the first round at number 26 and then have to wait until number 91 in round 3 with their fourth round pick at 126. It's a slow start to this year's selection. The Bills then have 4 more picks after that, numbers 165, 168, and 182, and 220. Would Bean make another trade to get back into the second round? It was a question that kicked off this Tuesday's news conference after some light chatter about the Sabres. A trade? Oh, you know, I'll always listen, yeah. Bean said, obviously we have our pick in round 1. We don't have the 2, which we got DJ for. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what's there. As always, it's no different. Even if I had 3 2s, if someone's offering me something that makes sense to go back, we'd do that. It's harder to go up. But I would think with us, you'd never say never. Bean is no stranger to making trades during the draft, and what could push things in that direction of a trade back for Buffalo this year is the number, or lack thereof, of players that the Bills have given a first-round draft grade. I would say we're on the lower end of it, without saying the number of true first-round grades, Bean said. He later added, and no, I don't have anywhere near 26 first-round grades. If the clock starts for the Bills in round 1, when their first-round grades are all gone, it will be hard for Bean to stay put. He's traded down twice before drafting wide receiver Keon Coleman 2 years ago. Of course, any trade needs a partner. Bean and his staff study the tendencies of the other 31 clubs to get a better feel and more realistic mock drafts. Scouts make their mock picks based off that research, which can help the Bills prepare for anything once the draft gets rolling on Thursday. They work through all sorts of situational drafting. We're trying to create as close of what a scenario that you could face on Thursday and then make the decisions, Bean said. And in this case, all right, we get to pick 26. All right, is this something we're fired up to take a player? Or is this something we would prefer? There will be a player there that we like that can help us. But it is something we would prefer to trade back and get that player in round 2 while adding some additional comp. So that's kind of the conversation. Make sense of all that jibbly-jib.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 10:29. On to Asking Eric. Executor wants out due to uncooperative friend. Dear Eric, a friend of mine who I've known for more than 30 years has asked me to be the executor of her small estate. I agreed to do so. To make that task less difficult for me, I've asked her to create a list of those she wants me to contact upon her death and to settle some financial loose ends. I have offered to help her do both, and I have given her a list of resources in the community. She will not do these things for whatever reason. I want to support her, but I am feeling frustrated. I'm thinking of no longer being her executor. She does have a secondary person in mind. Does a friend withdraw from being an executor? From frustrated executor. Dear executor, you can withdraw, and it's better to do so now so she has time to find and set up a new executor. You can explain that you want to help her, but you don't feel comfortable or prepared to do so. without her providing the things you asked for. This may be enough motivation for her to complete the task, but there's no guarantee. Either way, if you don't think it's a good fit anymore, it's better for your friendship now and for her estate in the future that you step away. Dear Eric, in a letter signed Concerned Daughter, a daughter described the heartache and frustration she feels in regard to her 87-year-old mom's refusal to consider her own mortality. As an end-of-life doula, I know this can be painful. Doulas can be a practical and meaningful resource for the daughter and perhaps her mom. Trained end-of-life doulas provide the opportunity to speak openly and frankly about dying, explore what the dying person and family most need, support the spiritual practices of all involved, discuss end-of-life care appropriate for the individual. Trained end-of-life doulas are just an online search away and can make all the difference from peaceful end. Dear Peace, thank you so much for sharing information about your profession. Many readers may not be aware of the services that end-of-life doulas can provide, but I think the benefit is immeasurable. Folks can read more about end-of-life doula training and practices and search a directory on the National End-of-Life Doula Alliance website, nedalliance.org. Dear Eric, my clothes in the washing machine were ready to be put in the dryer, so I did that without first looking in the dryer. Well, my partner of 26 years and procrastinator in chief came stomping into the room as she asked me if I had put my wet clothes in with her dry clothes. Her clothes had been ready to be removed for about 4 hours, so we had to pull out all the clothes and separate them. She was mad. Was it my mistake for not first looking in the dryer, or hers for waiting and waiting? She normally says, I'm helpful. Dear Helpful, this is a situation where everyone is a little bit in the wrong and yet nothing terrible came of it. Oh, what every relationship conflict was as solvable as this. Yes, she probably should have looked first, and yes, she should have taken the clothes out in a timely manner. The thing about making dry clothes wet again while they're sitting in the dryer is that they're already exactly where they need to be to fix the issue. It seems from the language you use that there's a small amount of tension in your relationship around household chores. Perhaps at a calm moment you two can check in about expectations and anything that's gone unsaid. This isn't meant to create an issue where there isn't one. Quite the opposite, actually. If you talk about the little things, they're less likely to become big things. And dear Eric, one of my biggest bullies from high school recently moved back to our hometown. He reached out to me because he wanted to catch up. I was worried, but I agreed to a drink. Eric, it was terrible. He talked only about himself and his accomplishments. When I brought up his actions in high school, he said I was always too sensitive. Now he wants to hang out again. He says he doesn't know anyone in town anymore. I think he also wants to use my connections to help him advance professionally. How long am I obligated to put up with this from Bullied? Dear Bullied, I'm checking my watch and lo and behold, the time for this interaction is up. If he won't take accountability for his past behavior and is compounding it with less than friendly behavior in the present, you don't have to put up with more. Put the kibosh on future hangouts. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. With truce set to end, U.S. delays talks on war. Islamabad. Last-minute ceasefire talks between the United States and Iran looked uncertain Tuesday as a 2-week truce was set to expire, and both countries warned that without a deal they were prepared to resume fighting. U.S. Vice President Vance, expected to lead U.S. negotiators if talks continue, called off a trip to Pakistan, a U.S. official said, and Iran said it hadn't decided whether to participate. Pakistani leaders, including Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, worked intensively late Tuesday to get both sides to agree to a second round of ceasefire talks, according to 2 officials who spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak to the media. The ceasefire was set to expire today. Iranian Foreign Minister spokesman Esmail Beghai told Iran State TV there has been no final decision on whether to attend because of unacceptable actions by the U.S., apparently referencing its recent blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. As Vance put on hold a return trip to Islamabad, Pakistan's capital, President Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff and son-in-law Jared Kushner were expected in Washington on Tuesday afternoon for consultations on how to proceed, said a U.S. official who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss international administration deliberations. The official cautioned that Trump could challenge or change his mind on negotiating with Iran at any time and declined to predict what would happen if the current ceasefire expires without another meeting. The official said Trump has options short of restarting airstrikes. Both sides remain dug in rhetorically. Trump has warned that lots of bombs will start going off if there's no agreement before the ceasefire deadline, and Iran's chief negotiator said that Tehran has new cards on the battlefield that haven't yet been revealed. The ceasefire, which began April 8th, could be extended if talks resume, though Trump said in an interview Tuesday with CNBC, "Well, I don't want to do that." A senior commander in Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps threatened to destroy the region's oil industry if war with the United States resumes. If southern neighbors allow the enemy to use their facilities to attack Iran, they should say goodbye to oil production in the Middle East region, said General Majid Massawi, and he told an Iranian news site. Iran's envoy to the United Nations said Tuesday that Tehran has received some sign that the U.S. is ready to stop its blockade of Iranian ports. The U.S. has made no public statements about lifting its blockade. Ambassador Amir Saeed Iravani said ending the blockade remains a condition for Iran to rejoin peace talks. When that happens, he said, I think the next round of the negotiations will take place. The U.S. imposed the blockade to pressure Tehran into ending its stranglehold on the Strait of Hormuz, a key shipping lane through which 20% of the world's natural gas and crude oil transits in peacetime. Iran's grip on the strait has sent oil prices soaring. Brent crude, the international standard, was trading at close to $95 a barrel on Tuesday, up more than 30% from February 28th, the day that Israel and the U.S. attacked Iran to start the war. Before the war began, the Strait of Hormuz had been fully open to international shipping. Trump has demanded that vessels again be allowed to transit unimpeded. Over the weekend, Iran said that it had received new proposals from Washington, but also suggested that a wide gap remains between the sides. Issues that derailed the last round of negotiations includes Iran's nuclear enrichment program, its regional proxies, and the Strait. On Tuesday, the U.S. said its forces boarded an oil tanker previously sanctioned for smuggling Iranian crude oil in Asia. The Pentagon said in a social media post that U.S. forces boarded the M/T Tafani without incident. The U.S. military did not say where the vessel had been boarded, though ship tracking data showed the Tafani in the Indian Ocean between Sri Lanka and Indonesia on Tuesday. The Pentagon statement added that international waters are not a refuge for sanctioned vehicles. The U.S. military on Tuesday seized an Iranian container ship, the first interception under the blockade. Iran's Joint Military Command called the armed boarding an act of piracy and a violation of the ceasefire. Pakistani officials have expressed confidence that Iran will also send a delegation to resume talks that mark the highest level of negotiations between the U.S. and Iran since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. The first round, April 11th and 12th, ended without an agreement. Pakistan said Foreign Minister Ashik Dar met Tuesday with the acting U.S. ambassador in Islamabad to urge a ceasefire extension. Dar also met with the ambassador from China, a key trading partner with Iran. Security has been tightened across Pakistan's capital, where authorities have deployed thousands of personnel and increased patrols along routes leading to the airport. Israel's military said Tuesday it has sentenced 2 soldiers to 30 days in jail and removed them from combat duty for smashing a statue of Jesus Christ in Lebanon. Images of an Israeli soldier with a sledgehammer smashing the statue's head emerged over the weekend, bringing widespread condemnation. Israel said one of the soldiers being punished hammered the statue to the ground. The other filmed the destruction. The Israeli military said it replaced the statue. Meanwhile, historic diplomatic talks between Israel and Lebanon were set to resume on Thursday in Washington, an Israeli, a Lebanese, and a U.S. official said. All three spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss the behind-the-scenes negotiations. The Israeli and Lebanese ambassadors met last week for the first direct diplomatic talks in decades. Israel says the talks were aimed at disarming Hezbollah and reaching a peace agreement with Lebanon. A 10-day ceasefire began on Friday in Lebanon, where fighting between Israel and Iranian-backed Hezbollah militants broke out 2 days after the U.S. and Israel launched joint strikes on Iran to start the war. Fighting in Lebanon has killed more than 2,290 people. Since the war started, at least 3,375 people have been killed in Iran, according to authorities. Additionally, 23 people have died in Israel, more than a dozen in Gulf Arab states. 15 Israeli soldiers in Lebanon and 13 U.S. service members throughout the region have been killed.
Thank you, Larry. Folks, one more article about the Sabres, and it's a rather lengthy one. Unsung heroes, not just on ice for Sabres. Largely unseen equipment staff loves the return to the playoffs. A crowd of 19,070 shouted so loud and stomped with such force on May 30th, 2006, that Buffalo's downtown arena shook. Dave Williams and George Babcock were in the Sabres locker room when the tremor began. The deafening roar made it sound like the building was going to topple into Lake Erie. There's only 3 people that know how loud this building gets. Us and Lindy, said Williams, the Sabres head equipment manager. We thought the building was going to come down. That was nuts. Hours later, 4 minutes and 22 into overtime of an elimination game, Daniel Briere caused another eruption with an overtime goal to force Game 7. Williams and Babcock were behind the bench near the Sabres tunnel as the celebration reached a fever pitch. And across the past 20 years, they've been a constant in an organization that's endured drastic change. They were there for the heartbreaking Game 7 loss to the eventual Stanley Cup champion Carolina Hurricanes. After a thrilling victory in Game 4 of the 2007 Eastern Conference Final, they loaded the equipment truck for the trip home from Ottawa. They were there for Milan Lucic, hitting Ryan Miller, the dark days of the tank, a season shortened by a global pandemic, and finally the Sabres' long-awaited return to the playoffs. During good times and bad ones, the Sabres turned to their equipment staff for expertise and assistance. You won't find their names listed on a box score, but aside from Lindy Ruff, nobody in the players' orbit has more experience with playoff hockey in Buffalo than Williams and Babcock, the team's assistant equipment manager. They, along with assistant equipment manager Ben Lang and equipment assistant Keith Hayes, are the team behind the scenes that orders, maintains, and fixes the tools the Sabres need to win 50 regular season games for the first time since 2006-07. I have so much respect for them, said Tag Thompson, one of the Sabres' longest tenured players. It's a long list of things that they've got to do, and you never hear them complain. They do it because they care about the guys and they care about the organization. You ask them for something, they jump to do it. I think we have 3 really good equipment guys. They're a big part of the team. They're a big part of the culture and the energy and the vibe that we have in the locker room. Each game day is a window into the grind of the NHL equipment manager. Babcock walks into KeyBank Center at around 7:30 a.m., followed by Williams and Lang, both of whom live in the Rochester area. The Sabres' morning skate does not begin until 10:30, but injured players participating in the early rehab skate must have everything they need for their workout. Following the team's skate, the equipment staff must prepare the locker room for the game. Each has different responsibilities to complete before the first player returns at approximately 4:30 p.m., and according to Williams, there's always laundry to do. They do not go home on a game night until the last player leaves, which isn't until approximately 11:30 p.m. The job can be even more challenging on the road, like during the 2024 Global Series games in Czechia. The equipment guys drove a box truck some 240 miles from Munich to Prague, or a late-night flight from Ottawa to St. Louis a few seasons ago when the plane was grounded because of a maintenance issue. Once the team charter lands, the players are bused to the hotel while the equipment staff heads to the arena to prepare the locker room for practice or the next day's morning skate. They work late into the night, then they have to be the first ones at the arena the following morning. The games are probably the easiest part, said Babcock. It's the long hours and the pressure you put on yourself to try to provide for these guys. Some guys need to be treated a certain way, and other guys you don't need to do anything for them. Pressure situation, if their freaking shot blocker blows up on the bench, you need to fix that and get them back on the ice as soon as you can. That's what we do. That's our job. Hockey equipment managers don't choose the career for money. They don't do it for attention either. If it weren't for the Sabres social media accounts, you probably wouldn't be able to pick any of the three from a lineup. They're not super fans. You're not long for the profession if you ride the highs and lows of an 82-game season. Win or lose, they approach the game. They approach the job the same way. It's not just stocking, maintaining, and repairing equipment and supplies. They also need to be well versed on the latest skates, sticks, pads, and helmets a player can use. To reach the NHL, they toil away in the minors, or in Babcock's case, hang out long enough at the local practice rink. Babcock was working at the team's old practice facility, Saberland, in 1988, and a chance meeting with the Sabres' longtime head equipment manager, Rip Simonik, led to an NHL career that spanned more than 2,500 games. Williams earned the admiration and respect of Rochester American players before he joined the Sabres for the 2005-06 season. Lang was the Amerks head equipment manager until he got the call to the NHL in 2018. The players' trust in all three did not happen overnight. Hayes' job is different. He helps the visiting team unload his equipment truck at KeyBank Center and ensures their locker room is ready for the game. To earn their stripes, equipment managers must show they care. They study every piece of information shared by equipment companies. They provide honest feedback and possible solutions. We balance needs and wants, said Williams. We try to be educated ourselves and know about products to be able to help the players. If I learn about the product and George learns about the product, then we'll tell the players and educate them so they can make the choice that's best for them, whether it's shot blocking materials or skate sharpening or stick curves, or what it's going to take to change into something and the realities of the global situation out there with production. For the Sabres, Williams has encyclopedic knowledge. Lang is obsessive with every detail, from the locker room temperature on the road to how each stall is organized for the next game. Hayes is a resident prankster. He and Jeff Skinner drove other staffers crazy with their antics during Skinner's time with the Sabres. No matter your profession, there's someone at your office who's unlike anyone you've ever met. That's Babcock. 2 seasons ago, as the Sabres were peeling off their equipment following their final game in Tampa, Florida, and Babcock had trouble closing a cabinet adjacent to the locker room. Once he realized it was broken, he ripped it off its hinges and let out a roar. Only Babcock could conjure a smile from a room full of hockey players who were angry about missing the playoffs again. And this group of Sabres isn't the only one to show appreciation for the equipment staff. During the 2019-20 season, as Babcock approached his 2000th game, the Sabres players bought him a snowmobile and unveiled the gift following a practice. Last month, as he reached 2,500 games, they bought him a trailer to haul around his outdoor all-terrain toys. And on the night he reached the milestone, the players' admiration and playful bantering showed. During warm-ups, Bo Byram squirted Babcock with water. Jason Zucker continued his tradition of hugging Babcock during warm-ups, wrapping both arms around him as the rest of the Sabres prepared for their game. Each time Zucker had dressed for a game the past 2 seasons, he's hugged Babcock. It's become a tradition. And following their win that day in San Jose, Ruff walked Babcock to the middle of the room so his entire team could celebrate his milestone. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen handed Babcock the championship belt that was awarded 50 times this season for the Sabres Player of the Game. He's one of the most genuine, authentic people I've ever met, said Sabres goalie Alex Lyon. He's so authentic to himself, and he provides an incredible amount of energy. Our season has been kind of a tale of 2 halves here, but he's the same guy from day one. I respect him so much, and we have so much appreciation for those guys. They work their tails off every day. You're just really happy for him, and you're hoping for 2,500 more for him. As the arena shook during the Eastern Conference Final in 2006, Williams and Babcock were in the team's old dressing room to prepare the Sabres for their game. There were other memorable nights over the several years that followed, but few included a deafening roar like the one the fans created Sunday night in KeyBank Center. And as the team completed a comeback that will be talked about for years to come, the equipment staff stood behind the bench ready to help out at a moment's notice. The joy and passion for the job didn't disappear for any of the three as the Sabres endured a 14-year playoff drought. They still rarely missed a day of work and built relationships with each player who spent time with the Sabres. Simonik knows the life. He lived it for 50 seasons and 3,850 games. The topic of playoff hockey returning to Buffalo brought tears to his eyes. I pray every year that we're in the playoffs, writes Simonik, whose wife Mary passed away in 2011. She stood by me. Dave's wife stands by him. George's wife stays by him. Ben's wife stays by him. It's not an easy job. We've got to be there on time. We've got to be there early. We have to be set up for the first guy comes in and stays until the last guy leaves. We don't ask for any special treatment ever. That's what the trainers are all about. This team knows what they're doing. These guys are so good. They're a good team. They love each other. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Mines for the taking. How the U.S. could clear explosives from the Strait of Hormuz. As the United States embarks on clearing mines from the Strait of Hormuz, it could draw on drones, explosive-laden robots, and helicopters to reduce risks, though crews still could be vulnerable to Iranian attacks. The U.S. military said it started the operation but offered few details. It said April 11th that additional forces, including underwater drones, would soon join the effort. Iran's disruption of shipping in the strait severely curbed global energy supply since the U.S. and Israel launched strikes against the Islamic Republic on February 28th. Iran deployed about a dozen mines in the strait, Reuters reported last month, citing sources familiar with the matter. U.S. President Donald Trump recently said all of Iran's mine-laying ships were sunk. Still, Tehran could deploy additional devices, some specialists said. Mine warfare is effective because the devices are cheap, costly to clear, and even the threat of a minefield is enough to stop ships, especially commercial ships, said John Pentereath, a retired British Navy Rear Admiral who is now a consultant. Modernizing sweeps. Traditionally, the U.S. Navy relied on manned minesweeping ships with sonar devices to locate the devices and mechanical gear dragged behind the vessel to clear explosives, sometimes supported by human divers. Many of these are being replaced by lighter vessels known as littoral combat ships, which carry modern mine-hunting equipment such as semi-autonomous surface and underwater drones, as well as remote-controlled robots. The Navy has 3 of these in deployment. 2 of those ships were undergoing maintenance in Singapore, a senior U.S. official told Reuters last month. At the time, U.S. minesweeping capacity in the Middle East included unmanned undersea vehicles, 4 of the traditional Avenger-class vessels, helicopters, and divers, according to the official. The U.S. Navy did not respond to a comment request on the mine-clearing capability it has in the Middle East. U.S. Central Command has declined to provide further details. Tehran is believed to possess several types of maritime mines, former naval officials and other specialists say. They may include bottom mines that rest on the seabed and detonate when ships pass above, tethered mines that are anchored but float closer to the surface, drifting mines that move freely on the water, limpet mines that attach directly to a ship's hull. The U.S. operation likely will involve searching for mines using unmanned surface and underwater vehicles equipped with sensors. Once a mine-like object is detected, the data is typically transferred to crews operating outside the minefield who identify the device and then determine how it should be neutralized. The Navy's search capability now includes sonar-mounted unmanned surface and undersea vehicles, as well as helicopters used to spot mines near the surface, former naval officials say. To destroy the mines, the Navy can deploy systems such as the torpedo-shaped Archerfish, a remotely operated device that carries an explosive charge and transmits video back to operators according to its manufacturer, BAE Systems, designed to be expendable. It costs tens of thousands of dollars. The U.S. also could use unmanned boats for towing mine-sweeping sleds that trigger detonators or gather mines, and said Brian Clark, a retired U.S. naval officer and senior fellow at the Hudson Institute. Human divers are also sometimes used, including for intelligence gathering, specialists say. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Linda Ranella
and Larry Beenan. Thank you for listening, and please continue to stay safe.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the New York Times Style section. Following that, at noon is the USA Today. Stay with us for these readings and more.